Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. We'll just do our opening prayers for this section. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them appear there with you just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Think about how much you would like to be able to help them. And how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it would be if we could also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they would go on to stop their distress forever. We are learning how that is possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish. To grow it even into a longing. Into an intention. Maybe even into a determination. Then turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know yet, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they're so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. All right, so what's that behind that blue door? The highest spiritual practice to do if we're going to die tonight. Like, here we are at tonight at my house. A little late now, right? But maybe tomorrow I have a chance to do it. And we were looking at that blue door and the letters showed up. Self, other, exactly the same. And they said, well, you can think of that on a worldly level. Everybody just wants to be happy. Maybe they have weird ways of thinking they get happy, but really, they just want happiness. Some physical happiness, emotional, even spiritual at some level. Just some nice, wholesome pleasure. They want to be listened to. They want to be appreciated. They want to be respected. Maybe they even want to understand a little better about their place in the universe, their purpose in life. How do we know that another person wants that stuff? Because we want that stuff. And I'm human. They look human. It's reasonable to jump to the conclusion that they want the same kind of stuff as I do. Not the specifics. We all understand that. And then if you extend that even to animals, really, they want the same thing too. Any conscious being, deep down, wants happiness and wants to avoid suffering. What they call those things is different, unique, but nonetheless, we understand that by just being our own suffering self, if you are. So just the baby level, exchanging self and others, is to recognize this fact and to pay a little closer attention to those other beings and just try to give them something that helps them feel seen and heard and cared about, and just hold the door open for somebody. It's really that simple. We all probably do it already and aren't thinking that, whoa, I just did the highest spiritual practice by holding that door open for somebody. Yeah, but we did. Okay, if we think of it that way. Then the medium level, at this baby level, still the baby level, but the medium part is having a greater level of concern for how our behavior impacts them. And we only know by watching their reaction to us, their facial expressions, their body language. We don't know their mind. But if we're concerned, how am I coming across to them? And now if I was me coming across to them, like would I like it? And Master Shantideva gives us really 3 different levels we can play with here. It's like, what's it like to be the recipient of my pride and arrogance or stinginess or jealousy? What's it like to receive somebody else's, those mental afflictions? It's unpleasant. It's ugly. And so this level is, why care about how I impact another being? And so I'm willing to work harder to withhold those behaviors born of those mental afflictions so that I don't have this negative impact on them. In fact, maybe I could try to do the opposite of those, which we can see how that helps us, because here's this mental affliction that arises that we would ordinarily yell at the person, and we decide, no, I don't want to influence them in that way. So I'm going to find some other way to be. We're not denying that we're pissed at them. We're just deciding we're going to respond differently, which is a big change in our own seed planting, okay? Which is what this is all about, of course. So we're caring about the impact we have on someone else and wanting it to be uplifting when we can. But both of those levels is still me and you, me versus you. I'm just deciding I'm going to try hard to put the you a little more important than the me for right now. Then we left off before we got to the deepest level. The deepest level, or the highest level, is to remove the distinction, bless you, between self and others. To remove the distinction between self and others. Like, did you catch what your mind or your heart just did when you heard that? It's like, I always get this, wow, cool, no way. Like, so fast. Love to do it, ain't gonna happen. Right? I can't even conceive of it. And so I love to like deliver this class because it's like it makes my own show up so that I can work harder on intellectualizing it, proving it to myself, so that I can then drop it into my natural reaction, the growing a natural reaction. So this one, we're learning how to expand our sense of self to include the other. Expanding our sense of self to include the other. And then when we serve them their favorite cup of tea, me is getting their favorite cup of tea. And, and instantly my old me goes, no, I'm not. I don't like that kind. Like, in fact, I didn't even get tea. I just gave it to them. But it's like functionally, says Geshe Michael, you put their favorite tea in their mouth, functions to bring us our favorite tea in our mouth, not really exactly tit for tat, but you get the idea. Right? Put someone else ahead, give them what they want, moral, legal, we have to add that. It creates our own future of having our own needs met, our own pleasures met. Now, it doesn't sound like, well, the only reason I'm taking care of others is so I can get my needs met. That does not sound so high. But we start there because our own selfishness is so overwhelming, so powerful. We need to learn to use it. We're not ever going to destroy it. What we'll do is use it and eventually transform it. But to say, I'm going to get rid of my self-cherishing me, it's like that self-cherishing me will come out, right? It was such power that will fall off track. But to use it, right, that's another matter. So this level, there's my notes. Master Shantideva teaches this. And he, in his chapter that goes into Daksha Nyamje, he says, first of all, get yourself out to a wild desert place. He says a forest, but to an isolated place where you really have nothing to do but your prayers and meditations, no distractions. Yeah, you've got flies going up your nose and ants walking on you, but other than that, you have no worries, no concerns. It's like, come on, that's impossible in this day and age. But what he means by that is to make space in our lives for these new priorities. If we already have full lives, and now we say, and now I have to add an hour of meditation and, of practice prayers, and how am I ever going to do it? And we wouldn't do that if we took up a new hobby. If you decided, oh, I want to learn to ice skate really well, you wouldn't just add that to your schedule. You'd have to let something else go to make place for it. So when we were going over the bridge again and again and again, it was about looking at our priorities in life. And we've allowed them to accumulate, really not by choice, probably. And now they all seem so important that we can't possibly get rid of a single one. And now you're adding all this new commitment, right? It's not reasonable. What is reasonable is to go back and look what of that old life, that old me, is useful enough to my becoming enlightened in order to keep doing. It's really a different question. Technically, everything in life could be useful to getting enlightened. But there are some things that are more easily used and other things that are less easily used. Just ditch the less ones when you're ready. not before. But so really, what Master Shantideva is talking about is reaching this mental space of willingness to change our attitude towards our activities, our people, our beliefs, so that we have the space within us to change, to make change. If we're clinging to our old me, it's not going to change. And we'll get frustrated trying, making a little space inside there. Here's a way that I'm being that I don't need anymore, right? It doesn't want to go, but I'm going to take charge here. They may be little things, they may be big things. The mental space we're trying to grow is this availability to consider this Dakshin Nyamje as a state of mind that we can have as we move through our daily life. You can't really very well Dakshin Nyamje when you're sitting at the base of a tree with only flies and ants. We need people. We need kind people, and we need the pain in the butt people. And I have to tell you, eventually, the pain in the butt people actually get fewer and fewer. True. It took 30 years, but come on, it happened. When I first started, it was like, no way, right? I'm always going to have those pain in the butt people because they show up, you know, every volleyball team I was on, every bit, there they are again. And it's like all of a sudden, I can't find them. But now I'm not around a lot of people either. But change happens when we're willing to make the change. Yeah. All right. So the mental space that we're being recommended to make space for is this mental quietude that's able to put making others happy as our priority. This state of mind that has shifted from me to others happy, others happy, others happy. Or call it uplift, or call it helpful, or call it kindness. Find a word that inspires you. Maybe happy is just too big or too unattainable. Geshe-la says, like the attitude on the plane when everybody expected that they would be dead within the hour. The pretzels were still stale. The movie was still lousy. The seats were still uncomfortable, but nobody cared about that stuff. They wanted to connect with each other, right? They wanted to support each other. They wanted to be special for each other. You know, now it's probably helpful that they had none of those cell phone things. But I don't know. I maybe wager that even if with the cell phones, we might ditch them. Or maybe make a pact that you'll ditch them and look after the others. But why did they all have this response? These teachings say, because when we become aware of another's suffering, a common suffering that we recognize, we only recognize it as suffering because right, we can feel it, not theirs, but we know what it's like. And so we feel for them. It doesn't necessarily mean becoming empathic, but you know what it feels like to be in a crashing airplane. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but we can imagine. And we know that the other person is feeling similarly, simply because they're human. And we can either close down further, oh, me, I'm going to die, me, I'm going to die. Or we can choose to open up. Well, if we're all going to be dead, what's the use of struggling? And these teachings say, well, we all are going to be dead tomorrow, or the next day, or 2 weeks from now, or 10 years from now, or at least 50. Well, maybe Svetlana is pretty young. 80 years from now. We're all going to be dead. Everybody we struggle with is going to be gone in 100 years. Like, gone. What's the use of struggling? And we go, well, because in that 100 years, my 50 years of it, I want things the way I want. And if we didn't have some idea of the going onness of each of us, we probably could use that logic to say, well, then me is most important because I don't know how long I have. I should just be as selfish as I need to be in case I die tonight. But when we understand that selfish slob me is going to be in a world of selfish slob me's, it becomes a little bit more important for us to think these things through. So by way of knowing suffering, we know others' suffering by way of knowing our own. Is how they describe that. So when we aspire to the highest practice, we first try on that baby level of attending to their physical needs, attending to their emotional needs, attending to their spiritual interests, just to the best of our ability, caring about them enough to pay attention. If we're on the receiving end of that, it feels really nice. We have a friend who twice a month sends us dinner, and it just feels so nice that they go to the trouble to do that. I'm not hinting, I'm not saying please do, because twice a month is plenty, but it feels so good. We all know what it feels like when someone cares enough to see what we might like. Second level is trying to get into the other's actual thinking, actual experience, to feel what they feel, to know what they need. It's not really to become them. We don't ever merge with others, but just in the sense of knowing more clearly what would help them. They probably don't really even know. And so this takes a more clear-minded, more astute, being aware of the other that we're with this interest in the things they like, in the experiences they've had. Right? It's just a little deeper level than the first one. May I really know what would bring you the greatest pleasure? May I really, it's growing the seeds to be able to be what they need someday, which is part of what we're saying we want to become as Buddhas. That's what our emanation being is about. Not just, oh, I'll go sit and hold your hand when you're scared, but you are what beings need. And if we think that through, if someone needs a good kick in the pants to get their spiritual life rocking, then you, the Buddha, is willing to be that one that gives them the big kick in the pants. It's not so pleasant to be that, but the love is so strong and overwhelming that your emanation being can't not be that for them, because your omniscience knows that's exactly what they need. And it's hard. It's like, no, I want to be the fairy godmother Buddha, right? Just bing, you get what you want. Bing, you get what you want. But come on, ultimately, is that really what helps people? Right? So just this starting to expand our sense of how we interact with others out of concern for them is planting these seeds for our ability to become what they actually need, worldly, emotionally, mentally, and ultimately. All right. So the third level, the deepest level, where we are training ourselves to identify a more inclusive self, is redefining this boundary of ourself. Here's my boundary. There's your boundary. And it's always been like that. And it's ridiculous to say I can grow my boundary to include an other. I can pretend, but come on, I can't really do it. And Master Shantideva is going to go through those resistances that we have that come because of our self-existent me, self-existent you thinking, that block our ability to go, oh yeah, duh, they are all part of me. So when they eat, I eat. When they cry, I cry. Just because they're suffering or they're getting some pleasure, they're a part of me. We already do it with our kids, to some extent with our pets. We can do it. And Master Shantideva says all the arguments we give for not being able to do it is just because we don't want to really. Because our what about me shows up so strongly that it blocks our willingness to take it seriously. Death meditation can lead to this expanding sense of self, because we've shown ourselves that we don't know, like our death is certain, and that we don't know when, and that when we die, what goes on are the karmic seeds that we made on behalf of our self and people, our self and things, and even our self and our identity. And that when we realize that those, we're going to lose those, but there's still something that goes on unique to each of us, we see it's like, oh man, how much of the karmas that I make all day long are karmas that will hold me back, that will keep me suffering, and how many of the karmas that I make all day long will actually uplift me. And, I don't know, if we were collecting black rocks for every selfish instant and white rocks for every unselfish instant, right? Wouldn't our pockets be just full of black rocks and maybe a couple of little white ones from when we did our practice and had a aha kind of thing? But that's all changeable and changing moment by moment, of course. So when we really clearly understand, oh my gosh, my behavior creates the future. And oh my gosh, that's true for every conscious being. And it's extraordinary that, puny me now gets a glimpse of that. And it appears to me that almost nobody else in my world is even interested in that, let alone gotten a glimpse of it. And, it's unacceptable. All those mental afflictions that I have and that I apparently see in other people by way of their behavior is all because of this big misunderstanding of where things really come from. And now that I get a glimpse of that, it's like, it just chokes me that I can't take people and freak up, right? But who do I really need to, right? Take myself, wake up. Those others that we see with mental afflictions, we are seeing them do certain behaviors. What we are seeing is coming from us. We really don't know what they're seeing. But if they're seeing anything similar to what we're seeing, we know that they're planting seeds for future somebody doing that to them. So we don't have to get into the details of whose karma is it to see this or that. If we see a behavior that's driven from a mental affliction, we understand that that's going to come back. It's my seeds ripening, and it's going to come back to them in an ugly way. And so our mental afflictions and their mental afflictions become the enemy, right? Not just ours, but theirs as well. But our mind habitually rejects. And Master Shantideva knew that they would, so he goes through those arguments. Some of you have taken that class, I think it's 11, ACI course 11. And he says, the first reject we have is that we hold to the idea of the boundary of me stops at this visual thing, my body. And so we relate to ourselves visually to a great extent if we're not blind. And we say, well, look, my body stops here. Your body is over there and stops there. I can't exchange myself for you. I can't expand myself to include you because I'll hit up against your physical body, right? They can't touch, says Arya Nagarjuna. So Master Shantideva says, yeah, we say, if you poke that arm with a pin, I don't feel it. If you poke my arm with a pin, I do feel it. So see, we are different people. And Master Shantideva says, fatal error, because our establishing the boundary of ourself is arbitrary. To say I end here and you end there, and so we are different and separate, is not in fact accurate. And I don't know, my own mind goes, what? How can it not be accurate? And if we use a little logic, right, we can say, consider you and me, we are different, we are separate, because when you poke that foot, I don't feel it. And so let's use logic. Poke that foot, I don't feel it. That's true. If 3, then 2. If it's true that you poke that foot and I don't feel it, that it must be true that when you poke that foot, I don't feel it. If not 2, then not 3 is not true that if you poke that foot, if you don't poke that foot, I don't feel it.
No, it has to be different. You have to say if we are not different, because this is the second. Considering
Right.
you and me, we are different.
Right.
Because
if we're not different, because when you poke that foot, I don't feel it. What if I have numb feet and you poke my foot and I don't feel it? That negates the whole argument, because we're just saying he feels it, I feel it, that's why we're separate. Well, if I don't feel it and they do feel it, how can we be separate according to our logic? And it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't prove anything. The point is to establish this is me and that is you is something that we've come up with like eons ago, but it's arbitrary. And he says, and the reason we know that is because parents of a new child, anything that happens to that child is as unacceptable. Anything unpleasant that happens to that child is as unpleasant to the parent as it is to the child. They're not feeling exactly what the child is feeling necessarily, but they've established that that suffering in that being is as unacceptable as my own. We even do it with our stuff. You know, you've got your brand new car and it's parked in the parking lot, and you go out and you see all the cars have been scratched. They better not have done that to my car. Like, too bad for them. And then we see they did it to our car. Wow, right? They hurt me. Because our identity has expanded to include our new fancy car. So Shantideva says, it's not that we can't do it, it's that we don't want to. And that's our fatal mistake, because we continue to plant the seeds of me more important. And that continues to plant the seeds for suffering. The boundaries are arbitrary. Then we might say, yeah, great, but too hard. I can't possibly do it. And Master Shantideva gives us that line, you know, anything's easy to do when you do little bits at a time. Make a habit of it. When we're thinking of suffering as a common enemy, it inspires us to care for the others' suffering that we see to the same extent that we care for our own suffering. Whether that suffering is the back pain or the headache or the mental affliction that they appear to be having by way of their behavior. Now, how we influence them, right, is the skillful training. You can't just step in the middle of something. I see a mental affliction in you, you've got to stop it, and I'm here to stop you, stop it. Right? It doesn't work like that. But to recognize a situation and to, rather than get drawn in to the mental affliction side, you rather stay the one who holds the space. I don't exactly know what that means, but somehow we all get it. The one who doesn't react, right? That stays open, right? Presence. You be the space for everybody to calm down without saying, now, calm down, don't be upset, right? That doesn't help. Just hold that openness, right? Nice. Okay. So if suffering is unacceptable, then mental afflictions, which are the cause of suffering, are even more unacceptable. And if we have any in our mind, if we have any in our karmic pool, then we're gonna see them in our outer world. And by way of knowing how they make us feel and act, we have a clue as to how that other person is feeling and likely to react. And we can apply the understanding of do the opposite. Yeah, to help them be in a position where somebody responds differently to their mental affliction and behavior than what they expected. To behave, to react with more kindness instead of the usual get involved. Third argument he gives is apply the democratic principle. There's one me, and there's I don't know how many yous. Diamond Cutter Sutra says 840 billion Buddhas that there are, but I kind of take that to mean that's how many mind streams there are, because they say there's a finite number. I don't know that I believe that, but a lot. So come on, whose happiness holds more weight, them or me? Them or me? Yeah, but they're just one of many. Yeah, but there's 2 now, 3 now, 4 now. Allie spent Thanksgiving with 31 other people. Woo, that's a big one. So they outnumber me. So what I want should come last, right? Did you feel, what about me? Go, I did. Like, what about me? Geshe-la always says a bodhisattva's career path is to eliminate all mental afflictions and to bring about a little happiness. Eventually, ultimately, every happiness. So we train ourselves to hold that state of mind. We are all alike. No one wants suffering. Everyone wants happiness. We all have this same state of mind. Every human, every animal, every helping hungry ghost. Any being that has a me wants that me to be happy and to avoid suffering.
Sorry, Lama, I got a bit lost with this, with the train of thought. Master Shantideva is giving us arguments for what? For avoiding to think that expanding yourself as boundary is impossible.
Right.
And this third one is, I didn't get it, like there is only one me and experience of others, or what? I didn't understand.
There's so many others. This one is not so much about expanding self, but of just recognizing that there are more of them with needs and wants than there is me. So their needs and wants, because of numbers, is more important.
Okay.
Right. So a justification for turning our concern outwards.
Okay, thank you.
We make this distinction between self and other as projections forced by karma. And by no other way, no other reason. And that's actually a deep and profound thing. It's all a result of habit. And so for no other reason than it's always been like that, we continue to believe it and perpetuate it. So learning to conceptualize those other visual beings as an extension of myself just to imagine it is changing how our seeds are being planted. And it will change our interaction with them over time as we work with it. And those are the seeds that help perpetuate learning the practices that continue to plant the seeds that will grow into your fully enlightened being who is omniscient and emanating. This one, learning to exchange self and others, learning to expand that, to expand self, to include others, and take care of others. You can get a glimpse of how that's seeds for your emanation being. You can't do emanation being without being fully enlightened. They come hand in hand. So it's an important, powerful, open sutra practice that will lead to this beautiful shift in our own perception of what used to be me and mine now has a whole different meaning. You can hardly even use those words anymore because me so automatically means this me. And it's not what's meant when you reach that enlightened being, a being of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. So this exchanging self and others, expanding self to include others, we can see why it's the highest karmic seeds to just try to make if we were gonna be dead in the morning, because it's seeds for your wisdom, for your Buddhahood. So now death meditation just took a little switch, because before we might have been saying, well, why go to work at all if I'm going to be dead today? You know, especially if it's like for sure we're dying tomorrow, I'm not going to go to work today. We might go, whoa, I'm going to work early today, because that's where my people are. That's where the people that I need to work with exchanging self and others are. You know, or maybe go to the grocery store or go shopping or wherever it is that you're going to be around the people that push your buttons the most. And that's the highest practice to do if you're going to die tonight. Man, that's a big switch, isn't it? Our own mind goes, no, right? I want to be peaceful at home all day. Well, I just missed an opportunity. Then if you don't die that day, great, go do it again tomorrow. Great, go do it again tomorrow. And what's going to happen? Did it go well? You know, what did I do at work? It just all shifts to this, how well did I exchange self and others today? I don't know, you're going to become a different kind of employee. And they may not like it, or they may like it better. Highest thing to do, exchange self and others. So Geshe-la says we may need to change our priorities, still need to change our priorities. He says if you've seen that there are some worldly things that you just really want to do, he says, go do them now. If you really want to see the Leaning Tower of Pizza, just go do it now, so that it's off your bucket list. Don't you love that term? But then when you've got these checked off, then get down to business with this exchanging self and others. Now, technically, you can do the exchanging self and others on your trip to Italy. right? So it isn't really like you have to check them off and be done and then go take nun's vows and put yourself in isolation. It's not at all. This practice allows us to practice with everything that we do. That's cool. All right, let's take a break. That's about good timing. And then I'll lead you through this in a visualization where you can explore the feelings, like put you in a situation and you can explore the feelings that come up so that you have a tool to work with it on your own. We use our meditation cushion imagination time to try out different scenarios that we then actually try when we get to work and see how they go. We're a little bit better prepared if we've worked it through in our mind. I'm going to try to do this instead. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. The next day in meditation, you try it on for size again. It plants the seeds in meditation that can help us make the changes in our daily life. Right. So let's take a little break. And we'll go through this. And we'll pause the recording, pause recording. Resume, doing it. All right, so let's add this piece of the exchanging self and others. Thursday's class, we'll go through the whole meditation. There's nothing more for me to tell you, but we'll just do the meditation together. And if there are questions about, going forward, that's what will happen on Thursday. But we're finishing the actual class and meditation tonight. So also this particular session, we will do what's called the escaping my mind. Kunluk Norbaling or something like that, which means relying on the Lama as the precious jewel, which means when you're guided in this way, you can just recognize the angel in your heart as your preliminaries in meditation. Geshe Michael always says, never do this at home. Always do your preliminaries. But then he goes on to say, like, do your preliminaries like this. But so I'm repeating, don't do it this way on your own. Okay, so let's bring our attention to our breath. Set your body in comfortably. Hey, we lost Tom. What happened to Tom? That's fine. On every exhale, your physical body settles in, relaxes. You become less and less aware of it. And every inhale, your attention gets brighter, more keen, interested. Bring your attention to that precious being before you, that one who is love, compassion, wisdom manifesting there. Ask them to help you gain insights through this practice. Ask them to help you become a being expanded to include all. See them reach out and touch the crown of your head. Then your throat. And then your chest. Blessing you with this meditation. Now find yourself in the middle of that turret room, standing in the shaft of sunlight, thinking, I am devoting myself to my spiritual practices because they are the only thing that helps me at death and beyond. And I want the highest practice, the holiest practice. I'm suffering. Others are suffering. I can't stand it. And you turn your head to the right, you point your staff to that beautiful blue door. As you step towards it, you see those letters. Dakshin Nyamje. Me. Others. Exactly the same. And the door swings open. We enter this oval room, a large oval room. In its center is a beautiful big dining room table with chairs. And it's set for two people across from each other at one end. And someone you know is sitting there. You say hello. You sit down. And you see that on your side, there's a cart with various main dishes, various things to drink, various desserts. And you and they are having casual conversation. And as you do, you watch their eyes and you see that it keeps going to the food cart. You watch more closely to see if you can determine which of the meals they look at the most. Which of the drinks they look at the most. Which of the desserts they look at the most. And you keep chatting with them until you decide, oh, I think I know. And you pick up the plate of spaghetti and set it before them. And see their face light up. Oh, how did you know that's what I wanted? Thank you. That was so kind. Feel how good it feels. This represents serving others simple physical pleasures. That are wholesome, that are helpful. Then again, watch their eyes to choose what they'd like to drink. And somehow you know it's the lemonade and set it there before them. And again, they look delighted and surprised. It represents your ability to ask them about themselves, to give them an opportunity to be heard and respected, to be cared about. And then you do the same with the desserts. Handing them that piece of pecan pie. And again, they're startled and delighted. And it represents skillfully sharing with them some insight into their purpose. Feel how good it feels for them to be enjoying their dinner. Then help yourself to your own. Continuing to ask them about their kids, their parents, their hobbies. Recognize at this level, we are still me, they are still them. We're just attending to them more than we do ourselves, intentionally, and enjoying the pleasure they seem to receive from it. Now get up, move to your left. There's an opening in that wall, and you go through. You're in another oval-shaped room with another dining room table set for two. And there is another person there. It can be the same one or it can be a different one, whatever pops into your mind. You greet them and are having this casual conversation with them as you sit there. This second room is the room where we try to know them so well that we choose the dish they want out of knowing, not guessing. And so pretend that you can send a copy of yourself that goes and stands behind this other person and is able to see through their eyes, to be aware of their mind. And that copy of you then is aware that this person would like the tomato sandwich and the glass of root beer and the bowl of ice cream. And so the you at the table, again, just spontaneously serve that person. And you're aware too of what they'd like to talk about. You are aware too of what would help them feel a little uplifted. And you are aware of the pleasure that they feel from having been paid attention to, but to be having been paid attention to in the way that you seem to be doing. This represents trying to think like someone else, trying to see the place they're in the way they might be seeing it, and acting from that awareness of their needs and desires. But still, there is the distinction. I'm really me. They are really them. I'm just trying to understand them as if I were in their body, as if I knew them well enough that I could know how to help them. Then you look up, and again to the left, you see that there's another room. And so you go to this third room, which is like an ice cream parlor. Those little wire and glass round tables, brightly colored. One of those little tables has 2 chairs, and there's a person sitting there. Can be the same or a different, whatever comes to you. And you see there's a lovely cake sitting in the middle of this little table. One cake with one fork poised on its plate. You greet the person and you pull out of your left pocket a ball of red string. You lay that red string on the floor, starting behind your own chair. You string it around counterclockwise, going behind the other person and around the table, and tie the 2 ends of the string in a pretty little bow. You're outside the red circle and very deliberately step into it and sit down on your chair. This represents breaking down the distinction between self and other person. Now you have the sense of having 2 bodies. You have the sense they are an extension of you. But the other person asks, "That's weird. Why didn't you put the string between us?" And your answer is, it's just arbitrary. If I put it across the table between us, it would wreck that beautiful cake. When I put it around us, it's so much better, meaning karmically better. And so simultaneously, both use reach up with the ring finger of your left hands and tap on each other's foreheads at the third eye area. Tap 3 times. This represents the recognition of the common enemy, suffering and the mental afflictions that cause it. Recall that it's not enough to struggle with the mental afflictions in our own minds if others still suffer from their own. We want to help them with theirs too. Because if we can experience another having a mental affliction, they are a part of our own seeds ripening. Anyone's mental affliction will sooner or later hurt others, all others, in fact. So it doesn't matter whose mind the mental affliction is in. It's going to hurt you. It is hurting them, that part of you. And so we want to help stamp it out. And with that thought, your 2 bodies pick up the one fork and dig into the cake, eating a big bite of yummy cake off the same fork at the same time. This represents the democracy principle. It's incomplete to make efforts for our own happiness when everyone, limitless beings, are equal in their wanting to be happy and not wanting to be unhappy. We are all the same, really. When one eats, all eat. But we're not done yet. You look past that other you and you see that there's a silver door at the back of the ice cream parlor. And that silver door beckons you. And so you get up. And as you approach that door, you see the letters shine forth, bodhicitta. The door swings open and you step into a hexagonal room. In its center is a big incense burner. There's a beautiful fragrance and blue smoke billowing from the sticks of incense. This is the bodhicitta room. The ultimate love room, but it's really more specific. In this room, we cultivate the benefits of this exchanging self and others. I want to be happy, to be free from suffering. Everyone wants to be happy, to be free from suffering. I now know what prevents them and me from being totally happy. And so I will try as hard as I can to become a totally enlightened being myself, so that I can really be of service to others. I will try to mold myself into a happy person, an ultimately happy person, so that I can have the influence on others to lead them to that same state of happiness, not leaving a single one out. This is bodhicitta. In doing so, we stop our own aging, illness, death, and rebirth. We do reach ultimate happiness, but only so that we can help others learn to do it too. And the way I reach that is by trying to help others do it, even before I've done it myself. This is the upward cycle. And think of the influence that you would have on others' unhappiness, that you will have on others in unhappiness when you accomplish this goal. Imagine actually accomplishing it. We'll stay for 2 minutes, imagining that being who you will be. A manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. Vast, unlimited, being what any being needs. Now turn your mind back to that precious holy being there before you. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude for them. Enjoy them there with you. Think of this goodness we've done. And see it as a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Here inside it, see the happiness you have created, the abundance, the safety, the beauty, the enjoyments. Then offer it to this precious being. Your most precious thing. You are offering to this high karmic object. See them accept it so happily. They bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. That love, that compassion, that wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever, and so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the true ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales, share this goodness with that one person. Share it with everyone you love. Share it with every being you've ever seen or heard of, human and otherwise. See them filled with this wisdom of exchanging self and others. See them really, really happy to use it. And may it be so. All right. So we have some time if there's questions. Otherwise, I'll let you go early. And again, next class on Thursday, we'll just go through the whole thing. Okay? And so you'll be able to get these new glimpses of what the meaning is by hearing it. You know, when I guide you through it, you can be like open to stuff. It's a little nicer when you're guided than have to do it yourself. Okay. But I want to thank you. I love teaching this course. I know I say it about all courses, but this one's really my favorite. This and 11 are my 2 favorites. So thank you for the opportunity. Anybody have comments, questions about the meditation and the practice? Got it good? Okay, great. Then have a nice week. I will see you Thursday.
Thank you.
Granny,
Lama.
can you send me?
Thank you, the teacher.
Thank
Tracy,
you.
you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to ask a quick question. In regards to the tables and the rooms that you went in, does it matter if all the beings that were there were people who passed?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Okay. All right, I'm stopping the recording. Yes, I remember, Ali. I think I pause, quit, stop recording.